Thanks for clicking. We're going to interview alien abductee Justin Bush, the author of Violence Will Not Be Tolerated. What's unique about Justin in this book is Justin is one of the few abductees who has actually tried to kill an ET. He's pushed an ET. He's tried to catch, wrestle an ET, and his story's phenomenal. So if you haven't heard of Justin Bush, just put it into Amazon, and Violence Will Not Be Tolerated, just like the ET told Justin Bush. Calm down and get ready for an awesome interview.
Thank you so much for the interview, because your book was phenomenal, and I've been reading a lot. I was just kind of like, what else should I do? And it didn't take long after that till the next thing you know, I'm into the UFO category. I just want to commend you, because out of all the books and stuff I've been reading, yours just incredibly stood out to me. Just a phenomenal book.
Thank you.
Yeah. So
I appreciate you saying.
Nice. I know you said it took something like several years, right? You started 3 years ago. So all in all, from beginning to end, how long did it take?
I started in 2020, and I wrote about 130,000 words. I don't know why. I was just like compelled to do it. Like I had an encounter in 2020, and I literally couldn't shake it. I was like, I gotta tell people. I gotta tell everyone. I have to write this down. I gotta tell, and I couldn't get it out of my head. So I wrote it, and then the moment that I was done, there's this weird thing with compulsion. Like when they make you do something, it's like you can't help yourself. It's just like it's almost like you're hypnotized. But the moment that you do it, it's like it goes away. So I wrote and wrote and wrote, and then when I finally got done, I literally pushed myself back from the computer, and I was like, I will never publish this. Like it was like a compulsion that I had to write it down. And then the moment I was finished, I was like, I don't want people to know about this. But anyway, a few years passed, and then my girlfriend got really sick, and we were having a conversation one night, and we were talking about money, and I was like, I have that book it's doing nothing. It's literally just sitting there. So I was like, even if it made us $1, it would be better than it just sitting there. And so we had a lot of conversations about it. Like, people are going to start reaching out to you. It's going to get weird. In fact, when I finally told her, I said, I think I'm going to do it. I think I'm going to publish it. And she said, do you think the Men in Black will come again? So it was one of those things like, will it attract, will they threaten us again type of thing? Or would the attention keep them from, so it was a long thing. But anyway, when I decided to do it, I go on the computer and it's gone. Like out of the 130,000 words that I wrote, there was only about 30,000. So it was an earlier draft of the book. All the other drafts were deleted. They were all gone. In fact, so I had to rewrite the whole book, basically from start to finish. I rewrote the whole thing. I'm going through the editing process with the editing software. We go to upload it. It says it's uploaded. Check it. It's not uploaded. Go back into the computer, and all the copies are deleted. Everything's gone. So it got deleted twice. What we ended up doing is we had to recover it from that computer, and we were able to recover only one copy of it. The only reason I say that I've been hacked is because I actually saw it. So I saw someone take remote control of my phone, and some of my pictures and videos were deleted. But multiple times, I had pictures of stuff like an orb or whatever, and I go, a few months later, let's say, I'm talking to a researcher, and they're like, oh yeah, you have pictures, whatever. And I'm like, oh yeah, I do have something. And I go, and it happened in, let's say, March, and I go to March, and it's gone. It's gone from the cloud. It's gone from my phone. So I've had it's been a long process. It's been really weird. I've had a bunch of just, I don't know, call it bad luck. I don't know what you want to call it, but um, yeah. So it took me a long time.
Well, I'm glad you wrote it. I wanted to say a brief prayer, like for you and your family, if you'd permit me to do that.
Yeah, that's perfectly fine.
Okay, thank you. Uh, God, thank you for today. Thank you for our blessings. Thank you that Justin Bush was able to join to provide an interview. Please be with him and his family so that his life may be comfortable and guided and in fulfillment of your will. And we thank you for all the blessings. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Hey, thank you.
So one of my first questions was where I caught up with you. The book was published. I read it. I caught a couple of your videos online, and I think it was maybe 6 months ago or so. You were saying, if I have another encounter, um, I'm guessing you haven't had one since then. You seem in good spirits. I know you mentioned at times they bring you down. So is that the case?
Um, no, I don't think so. As far as them bringing me down, it seems to be a mixed bag. Where about 4 years ago, I had an encounter. I believe it was either early 2021 or late 2020. I mean, I had like my hair started falling out. I gained a bunch of weight. I had severe like anxiety and depression, and it really messed me up for probably about 18 months, where I was like crippled. But sometimes it happens and really nothing happens. It's like I have an encounter and everything's fine. I don't know why. Sometimes it has this kind of crippling mental kind of effect, and sometimes it's you see a UFO, you black out, you come to, and you're fine. Everything's fine. I mean, a little strange, but fine. Um, I'm not sure when that video was recorded, but it was September the 1st of this year. I had an encounter, or excuse me, of 2024. So that was the last time anything strange has happened.
All right. And could you briefly give me just a summary of that encounter? I'm interested to know.
Sure. That one was pretty intense. I don't know. I mean, I usually don't talk about that one because it was kind of. Uh, what happened was I was sleeping. I woke up. I heard a noise. There's a hallway and then a door to our bedroom. In the doorway was a short, gray alien type of creature. I kind of panicked. I was like, oh my God, they're going to take me. And then I just blacked out. When I woke up the next morning, I was in bed and I knew, like, I don't know how to explain it to people, but it's like your subconscious. So the moment I woke up, I was like, what did they do to me? What did they do to me? And I remember the only thing I can remember is I see this creature, I black out. When I come to, I'm on kind of like an incline with my legs up, like both of my legs up, and there was some sort of device on my privates. It was like a rectangular shaped, I don't know what you would call it, like a metal looking uh, object. So the next morning when I woke up, I knew that they had done something to me. I didn't know exactly what. I assumed they had taken semen, is what I thought. But I had some bruises up really close to my privates on the inside of my right leg. Um, I talked to some other researchers, and there's some experts out there that have researched for 20, 30 years. And somebody told me a while back, if you ever have an encounter, the very next day, go into a dark room, check yourself with a black light. He said sometimes the stuff they do to people glows. It's like it'll glow under black light. So I checked myself and I found a green smear on my arm, It was like a fluorescent green color something. I don't know, just a smear on my arm. I had the bruise on my inner thigh, and from my hips all the way down to my feet. If you've ever run like maybe you stop working out for a while and then you run 10 miles one day, and the next day all of your muscles are seized up. All of my muscles from my hips all the way down to my feet were seized up. Like getting out of bed the next morning, I was like not limping, but kind of like, I couldn't walk right. Like my muscles weren't working. But that's the last, strange thing that happened to me. Oh, I guess I should tell you. Um, I want to say it was the next day. I had some blood come out of my privates. Um, I don't know how much I want to talk about that, but so I had the bruise in my inner thigh. I had some blood that came out, and then I had this green substance on my arm. So
Thank you for sharing that. I don't remember that one in your book, so that's definitely, I think, a more recent one I wasn't aware of. I remember in your book you were talking about certain cases that you felt were really credible. Others that, it's not that you were insulting people, you were just like, that doesn't jive with me, more or less. So,
yeah.
as a treat here, I wanted to show you. Well, first on your book, this is the that Victor showed everybody, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah.
Did you happen to see that? It was a documentary actually, where Jon Stewart reveals who he thinks was the person, the anonymous person revealing Victor. Did you see that documentary?
I did not see that documentary. So a lot of people were claiming that the man named Victor, he's anonymous in the production, the documentary. They were claiming he was Stan Deho, which he was an old school UFO investigator from way back in the day. He was around a lot in the I think the 70s, 80s, 90s. But I believe that's who John originally claimed was Victor. Afterwards, I saw him. He said that Stan Deho had gotten in contact with him. He posted this on Twitter. He said that Stan Deho had gotten in contact with him, that Stan said that he was not Victor.
Where I caught on was Jon Stewart was saying, I talked to Deo, he hung up on me. I persisted. I called back, and eventually he supposedly told John on the phone, hey, I can't, I have a good life. I can't get into all that now. And then on X, I had posted kind of a complimentary thing, just saying, it was a great documentary. I enjoyed it. And then there was a reply to that post from a gentleman who says, no, I cracked that case 10 years ago, and it was somebody else, and they admitted it. So I guess nobody knows, but it's between Standard or the other, because there's a chance he would have still retracted anyways if he was threatened or something to that effect. And I did bring his book here to show you. So that's good old Stan. What fascinates me about Stan Deo is that he is all about religion now. He had some early documentaries, and back in these days, he was writing about UFOs because he supposedly worked on. But now he's all about rapture. The aliens are demons, they're devils, and they're taking over the world. And that's pretty much all from my research he's talking about these days. Not so much the stuff he was talking about back before the Victor video and in that era.
Well, I mean, if he's changed his mind, he's changed his mind. I know that Calvin Parker, you know Calvin Parker's case with the Pascagoula
Yes,
case.
yes.
So in his, I believe it was his last book before he died, he talked about something that he remembered on the crafts, and he said that on the craft they like drained his blood and they put some liquid in him, and he thinks that it caused him to die momentarily, something like that. Um, so he said he was on the craft. They were doing whatever they were doing to him, the medical tests or whatever, and he attacked that creature, that female creature. And he said that she was bleeding, and he said that she attacked him back, and he thought she had killed him. And he said momentarily when he like lost consciousness, the angels came for him, and he said they told him that he had like a part to play or something, and that he regained consciousness, something like that. I want to be vague because
Sure.
I don't want to lie, but something like that. I have to reread that section, but a lot of people end up going to the angels, demons. Eventually they believe that this is it has more to do with the soul or with consciousness, or
Yeah.
I'm just not there because everything that I've seen so far, I don't think they're demons. They seem to be biological. Um, they don't seem like or angels to me. I mean, they're not that. I don't know how to explain it, but they there's a duality to them that they can do some pretty horrible stuff to you, but at the same time they're kind of nice to you, where it's like, this is important, we have to do this, and they're trying to calm you down. They seem more like humans to me. They seem like a human being, like maybe has remorse, like they have to do something, like if a police officer arrests somebody and he's like, well, I don't want to have to do this, but it's my job. They don't seem very angelic to me, and they certainly don't seem demonic to me.
Yeah, Justin. So tell me about what you're kind of hinting at is they're here for a mission, a specific purpose, not necessarily police.
So yeah, no, to me they just don't seem like an angel or a demon, and maybe they are. I mean, there's no way. There's no way for me to know. I can only judge them based on what I've seen. So if other people at the end of the day come to that conclusion, that's fine. But for me, I think it's more important to hold off on any sort of religious or spiritual basis. And the reason that is because if it is a spiritual thing, then all you have to do is pray. All you have to do is be a decent person. Um, if it's not, then we have a very dangerous situation. And until we know more, I don't think that we should just give it up to spiritual beliefs. I think we need to use science. We need to capture these craft. We need to take a look at these creatures. We need to find out, exactly what they're doing. That's just my personal opinion. So I think until we know more, like I've had years worth of experience, and I don't know where they're from. I don't know what their ultimate goals are. I don't know what they want. All I can do is tell you what I've seen them do. And that's mostly, they seem to be doing psychological and physical tests on people, like medical tests. And it would just be very weird for an angel or a demon to be doing medical tests on people. It just seems like that wouldn't be. It just seems like aliens, or excuse me, like angels and demons would have a completely different way of addressing society. That it would be more of a spiritual thing than it would be a physiological thing.
Yeah, absolutely. But I got one for you, and I really want to take advantage of this opportunity to kind of pick your brain and give you some dichotomies. Um, a famous quote for me is Dr. Jonathan Reed. If you remember him, he was the one who he was hiking in the mountains in the 90s, and he hit an alien in the stick or in the head with a stick. And he used to always go to his interviews and he'd say, okay, hold on. This is not a debate. He's like, I'm not here to debate. Is my story, pure? I'm here to just tell you everything, right? But I do want to throw some ideas at you and see what you think. So, with the religious thing, it's very confounding and confusing, like you said. We have, like, in my opinion, uh, is I think it was Standeo potentially that was Victor, and someone
Mhm.
got to him, or he got back to John Stewart and said, the gravity of this is just so, you really just need to scatter and get away from this. And if I put myself in the shoes of Standeo, maybe for him the religious thing is the only way to like escape the horror of what he saw. And I don't believe he's an abductee. I just believe he's someone who, like, he saw stuff that flipped his world upside down. Um,
Yeah.
but I want to usher over to the other side of the fence with your CE5 contacts, because in my mind, and I could be totally wrong, but I see this as a dichotomy. Like, we have gray
Oh
aliens
yeah.
over here, and we have orbs, light beings, Nordic aliens. Like, it's like a whole different camp. There's Bledsoe. Have you heard of Bledsoe? He's the UFO of
Yeah.
God, and he's kind of exactly like what you said in your book. He's summoning and he's seeing orbs, no different than you, and he's getting euphoria from that. So that's totally different in my mind than the gray alien. So help me with this, demystify it if you could.
No, no, I think you're right. I think, you know, my whole life I've seen the gray aliens. And then once I started doing CE5, that's when I started to have experiences with completely different looking creatures, whatever you want to call them. I mean, I still had gray alien experiences from time to time, but when I was doing CE5, it was just vastly different creatures. And the way I looked at it was, so we weren't just doing CE5, by the way. Um, we were going outside, laying down, meditating, emptying our minds, and then we were doing CE5, but we were taking a flashlight and we were signaling them with like Morse code. We also used Fibonacci numbers. We also used prime numbers. Um, and so when they would appear and they fly by, we're sitting here shining, 1, 2, 3 at them. And we would get responses sometimes. Like if you shined 1, 2 and then did a pause and then did 1, 2, 3 and did a pause and then 1, 2, they would do it back. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. I also, like Chris Bledsoe was saying, sometimes they fly by and they light up, and it literally does give you euphoria. Like it feels like maybe somebody's like, maybe it's radiation or maybe it's microwaves or something, but it literally feels like you're vibrating, and it gives you immense amount of euphoria. Um, on one occasion, I had the exact opposite happen. I had an orb fly over me. It wasn't that low, maybe 70 feet, I'm guessing. But when it shined at me, I had the exact opposite. I had complete and total like fear. Like I locked up and just, flooded with fear. Um, but I do believe that we're looking at what I always tell people is, to me, it seems like you have several different, whatever you want to call, species, or you can, some people say they're on different levels of advancement, or but to me it looks like you have a multitude of different creatures, and that they are directly observing and interfering with humanity. Even the crafts that I've seen have had differences between them. Some are egg shaped, some are tube shaped, some are spheres, some are triangles. I've even seen a few that look kind of boomerang shaped, kind of like a swept wing shape. Um, so, to me, I think it makes the most sense that we are being visited by more than just one group. They seem to have. They even seem to be. The way they communicate, the way they treat people seems to be different. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but they do. I mean, that's just my best conclusion, is that it's a multitude, and for whatever reason, they're all investigating each other. They seem to be kind of on top of each
The,
other. You'll see one light come, and you're like, oh my gosh, and then another light will come and almost like chase it away.
Oh, wow.
Like there's some sort of um, I call it a contested space. Like we're in the middle of some sort of situation. Like there's multiple groups and multiple sides that are directly
Have you
involved.
ever said to yourself, like this time, when the next time they get me, I'm going to ask, these 5 or 10 things or something. And I was even thinking of a wild idea, like, okay, and I've never been abducted that I know of, but I would say, well, maybe I could tape my reminders around my chest or put something on my finger to like. But I imagine there's some reason when it happens you can't do it. You can't ask these exact questions we're talking about, like what's in the sky, who are they, like.
Right. Well, I think that you can.
So here's an awesome thing about Justin I want to point out is he seems to have more conscious experience with ETs than a lot of other people. And that's really phenomenal. And as well, what you'll gather from his book is he's a generational experiencer, his mother and so on and so forth. So this is something that's been in his family line for a while. And that to me correlates with why he has so many conscious experiences. But they're limited, as he'll get into. He's conscious in experiments, but still limited.
So here's the thing: when I was abducted several times, and I remembered what happened, they were very forthright. Like you could talk to them; they would show you things. They would show you. I remember one time I wanted to look at one of the tools on their table, and so I was picking it up, and one of the creatures was like, "Hey, put that down," and the other one was like, "Well, just let him look at it. He can't hurt anybody with it." And they had like a little disagreement with each other. And then they were like, "Yeah, he can't use it. He can't turn it on. So just let him look at it. He can't hurt anybody with that thing." So when I am abducted and I can remember what happened, they're very forthright. They talk to you. They'll answer your questions. They'll show you things. They'll show you the ship. They'll show you this tool. But the big issue is that for whatever reason, they seem to be purposely manipulating people's memory. So that's what I was saying before, where like it's like subconscious. It's like, okay, I saw this creature, I blacked out, and now I know that they took my semen. Like I have a little bit of memory, but I can't remember what we talked about. I can't remember, I just have no memory of any questions or anything like that. But I did want to say one thing. On one occasion, I wrote a letter. So I wrote a letter because I was having a lot of contact, and then I put it on the step outside the house. And this was a letter to them to see if they would answer any of my questions. The next day, when I came out there, it was burned. It looked like somebody had hit it with a laser or something, or somebody lit it on fire. It just had a little circular burn right in the middle of it. So I've tried to do those things. I've tried to ask questions and stuff, but most of the time it's like you see a UFO, you black out, you wake up 2 hours later, you have no idea what happened, so you can't remember asking any questions. The times that I do remember, they were very forthright. So
Let me ask you, as a follow-up to that, and whatever you answer it's your answer. You've already done the memoir, which is wonderful, and some people like they don't even write their memoir or release it until they're at the end of life. But you've done that.
mhm.
Are you interested in regressive hypnosis? Getting because nowadays you can get your genetics done, and you could study it, throughout your life and try to find pieces to the puzzle. You're interested in either of those things?
Yeah. So as far as writing the memoir now, I think that okay. So when I wrote it, I wanted to make sure I wrote everything I could remember before I did any hypnosis or anything, because skeptics, debunkers, and just regular people in the public attack regressive therapy. They claim that it manipulates the mind and the things that people say aren't true. So I wanted to write down everything I could remember before I did any sort of hypnosis or any regressive therapy. As far as publishing the book while I was alive, that just seemed like the right thing to do, because people can ask questions. And, if more things happen, which I'm not saying they will, but I have a bad track record, so I assume that I'm going to have more encounters before I die. But I can continue that kind of story, and let people know every time I see something, or something happens. But I want people to be able to question it. I want people to be able to study it if possible. I want hypnotic regression. I have no problem at all with any sort of, if they want to do some sort of DNA testing, I'm fine with all of that. I'm open to all of it. I want answers just as much as the public, if not more. Um, but it's just one of those things. I just thought writing it down, letting it out, and then kind of dealing with everything else later was the best option.
Oh, that's amazing, Justin. I did genetic testing, like when it first came out for ancestry.com, and people in my family were like, "Don't do that. You're giving away your information." And I'm like, hey, I'm not bin Laden, like whatever. I'm not worried about it. And the interesting thing is I've learned to, with Google and AI, I've learned to look at my data. You literally just download it into like a spreadsheet and it's just like data. But you can go to the particular codes and say, okay, these two segments are supposed to say what my eye color is. And there's two indicators. Like if it says you should be blue here and says you should be blue here, by golly, you should be blue. Well, both of mine said I should have brown eyes, but I have just a speck. I have blue eyes, but one just speck of brown right there. But that's kind of an example of the things you might find, like healing. Okay, this is one I would be really interested to see in your case. Um, I've been studying a little anatomy and stuff, and we get a cut, and it takes time to heal. But if I understood you correctly, in your book, there's something in your body that's allowing miraculous healing, or you're being revisited in your healing. But if it's in the body, for example, it could be, at the end of the DNA segments, all the parts we don't know, you might have some ability that just like it waits, it figures out the problem and just jumps in there, and like you said in your book, instantly heals your wound as if like it was never there.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I don't know if that's the key. I don't know why that happened, but it's happened multiple times where I've had like a cut, and then the one time I had a cut on my leg. It was the worst scar I've ever had in my life. It was purple. I had it for like 4 or 5 months, and then one morning it was just gone. Like the next day, I have a stationary bike, so when I ride the stationary bike, I can just see it every day. Like it's just this big wound. And then one morning I literally woke up. I went to go put on my shoes, and you know how you kick your leg up to put your sock, and I'm like, whoa, 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 it's gone. And I showed my girlfriend immediately.
Yeah.
I was like, look, it's gone, it's gone. And yeah, so it's happened several times, and I would love that it would be maybe my fault in somewhere in my DNA. That would be great, but I just don't. I have no idea if it's true or not.
Now, I don't mean to offend you by this, but it's kind of like for me to be a good conscience, it's obligatory. I have to ask because if you have these abilities like to heal quickly, then at some point if it is the grace, because you visited many, they have like endowed you with abilities other people don't have. So it makes me wonder. Um, but I mean, how would you know? You wouldn't know, but it makes me wonder, have they given you other sorts of abilities that they're, from a scientific perspective, monitoring? Like, for example, that healing mechanism. I mean, if that is something that they discovered and endowed you with, well, they hit it right on the target, bullseye, because it worked.
Yeah, I'm not offended by that at all. Other people have suggested that that might be the case. That they might be, it might be because it's generational, it might be a tinkering where they are slowly but surely manipulating, the generations in order to spread something throughout humanity. If I'm honest with you, I don't think the healing thing is, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I would suspect it's the telepathy. Um, if you you've been reading lots of stuff, but what you'll find in a lot of encounters is you'll have like five guys that they're walking in the woods and they run into this creature, but only two of them can hear it, and the other five it just
Yes.
sounds like nonsense. I can hear them loud and clear. I've never had any problems talking to them. Um, I've always understood them. I've been able to kind of know what they're talking about. Like, when we say telepathy, it's not quite right.
People are. I could hear my voice. However, the cadence, the affect was something that distinguished it other than me. It was no great booming voice from the heavens or anything like that, and I'm glad I do not have a proclivity to hear voices in my head, and have heard none since. But people could probably challenge that. But I could tell that it was somebody other than me, and I could tell because I felt drawn toward the subject that was sending the communication. When the J-Rod spoke with me prior to the bombardment of the images, it was something that was part of me, but not part of me. I actually felt non-resident for a moment. It was almost an OBE type feeling. And then I could feel myself pull back and experience sound. It was physical. It was more real than touching an object. And that's the only real time that I felt anything, more physical than physical.
Is there sort of convergence of
Exponential virtual reality.
100% emotion. If he was upset, I could feel his pain. It got to the point where, as I was doing the needle introductions, I could feel what he was feeling. So as I would inject the needle under the integument and find my proper location prior to removing the sample, I could feel the needle entering him.
So that's telepathy, folks. It's not just talking. It's a lot more than that. It's the entire sensation of the presence and so on and so forth. Let's get back to Justin.
It's, I prefer thought projection because you can get like feelings, emotions. You can get like videos, just like if you took a camera and videotaped something and then you watched it. It's sometimes it's words, but most of the time it's like a mix of like feelings and thoughts and pictures. If I had to guess, I would say that might be one of the reasons they're studying me, because if it's true that, I'm not saying I'm the most telepathic, person in the world or whatever. But if it is true that there are varying degrees of it, where some people are more capable than others, then I would suspect that might be something they're studying. Especially there was 2 times that they did testing on me, that they put a thing on my head, and it seemed to me like they were trying to test specifically that, like they even said at the end of one of the tests, they said to me that I needed to learn how to control my thoughts. That I need to learn how to like filter my own thoughts. That was what they said to me. So to me, that might make the most sense. Is that whatever it is, it's some sort of, maybe we're on the verge of telepathy as a species, and maybe they're here to either monitor it, how we evolved into it, or maybe they're here to give it to us. Maybe maybe that's why they're tinkering with us to slowly, integrate us into whatever you want to call it, the Galactic Federation or whatever it is.
Oh, very good. Thank you for the comprehensive response. For people like me, and I understand you, and you could be right. For people like me, we say like the people who had the experiences are special, and everyone. I was at a Galactic Federation, well, type themed conference with Michael Sala, and we were out at the Skywatch with Elena Denon, and she summoned a triangular craft, and we'll talk about that in a second. But she summoned it, and the people, the general people at the Skywatch, the sentiment that was constantly repeated was, "I wish I had the contact that Elena had. I wish this." And so that's what people want. But on the other side of it, you echo sentiments of my buddy here, Brett Oldham, who wrote this book, Children of the Greys. And he is there's nothing nice about it. He just drops the mallet and he's like, this is not fun. You don't want it. And, I mean, if you say you do, you're, pardon my French, an idiot, because there's nothing good about it. So it's this very like polarizing environment we have where we have so many people wanting contact and CE5, and then we have the reality of it, which I sympathize with you. Having read your book, I mean, I can't imagine those nights out in the country alone with, just your girlfriend and being so exposed and vulnerable.
Yeah, you can't sleep. You literally just, what after an encounter, and if it really messes you up, you start sleeping during the daytime because you literally feel so afraid to become vulnerable. Like, when you close your eyes, you become vulnerable. When you pass out, you become vulnerable. So literally, after an encounter, I would literally only sleep during the day because for whatever reason, it just made me feel more, protected to sleep during the day than it at night. But yeah, no, it's a mixed bag. I mean, I tell people all the time the best part of it is to fly in the ships. The very best part is they grab you and they make you go with them, and even if you don't want to go, it doesn't really matter, you're going. But they'll bring you over to the window, and some of these craft have windows, by the way. Some of them don't, but some of them do, and they bring you over to the window, and then you just watch as you lift up. It is one of the most, it's one of the greatest experiences I've ever had. There's something so, I don't want to say magical, but there's something that's so fantastic about the way these craft are able to fly, how fast they're able to go. I mean, it's, when you step inside, it looks like a big metal thing, but this technology is the next level for humanity. It's leaving the planet. It's being able to study the universe. When you see these things operate, it is one of the most exhilarating things I've ever experienced in my entire life. So it's just a catch-22. You're going through these invasive procedures. You're very scared. You don't know what to do. You don't know who to turn to. You don't know. The police are like, this is a problem for the Air Force. The federal government tells you to keep your mouth shut. Most of the public don't believe you, so you're kind of in this situation where you're at the mercy of these things, and sometimes you have the most amazing experience you've ever had, and sometimes you have the most debilitating experience you've ever had. So it's a mixed bag. I mean, it's just how it is. It's a little good, a little bad.
So, Justin,
sometimes
you've heard of Whitley Strieber, right? So
yeah.
Let's do pictures. Do either of these ring a bell? Or are we looking at some pretty authentic depictions here?
I mean, they're good. I think the head shape is funny. The eyes are pretty good. The shape of the eyes are pretty good. I think the face is too long. I think the eyes need to be moved down. The nose, the mouth needs to be moved down. But they're a good. How do I say this? They're a good. Um, Here, let me show you something.
Um,
So, I think this is more accurate.
oh, interesting.
And then I have seen one with a more elongated skull. It was one of the tall grays, and it had a much more elongated skull than the short ones. I don't want to say it's more accurate because this is just a crappy drawing, but I think it's you'll see what I'm saying. I think that's
that's a tall gray.
Yeah, this is the tall gray that I saw looked a lot like this. Um, I'm not the best drawer in the world, but I think that's pretty accurate. Yeah, I just think the head proportion is. I think the eyes are really good, but I think it's the head proportion. It's even my picture. I mean, clearly this isn't perfect, but it's one of those things like the proportions just aren't perfect. But yeah, I would say it's accurate enough. If you've never seen one and you saw that picture, you would immediately go, okay, like that's pretty close.
Now, to put one in motion, this is going to be hard. I'm going to show you my phone, but and this is just from Instagram here. But let's see if that'll come through for you. Have you ever seen that video?
I have not seen. I don't think I've seen that video before. Oh, look at that.
It's animated. And
I have. Yeah, I've seen that one right there. I've seen the UK one.
What's your read on that?
Yeah. I don't know, man. I honestly don't know. It's to me, it's not good enough. The quality's not good enough. It doesn't look perfect to me. But I try not to be so mean about it because I've only seen 20 gray aliens, let's say. And they all look pretty similar to each other. But I have no idea if they're the only ones. You know what I mean? If you look at humans and you look at like a white person that has some sort of genetic deformity that's in a wheelchair, and then you look at a black person that's 7'2", basketball player, the differences in us are so much that I bet you a lot of people would be like they're different species. So I don't like to put people down and say like, oh, that's fake because it didn't look like what I saw. But I would say is it's not good. It doesn't look like what I saw. It's not even close in some respects. Is it real? I don't know. But it's not. The only video I've seen that is absolutely perfect is that Victor video. The creatures that I met look exactly like it would be like
up here, television, video monitors, and they're off at an angle. If this was shot using a video camera with lines on it, we would see moire patterns up there, and we don't see the moire patterns. So there's a probability that this was shot originally on film, possibly a film stock like 7252 or 7247, depending.
I've explained this to other people. I said, if you go to India and you see a tiger, and then you come home, and then you go to the zoo, and you're trying to explain to your friend what you saw, and you say, see this animal in the cage? That's exactly what I saw. It might not be perfect with the one of them has 22 stripes and one has 23, but it's so close that it's as perfect as you'll ever get. Like this is the species that I saw, or a type of bird.
No,
or something
I understand. So when I first got into this subject, the first book, I don't know, maybe it was my mother or someone bought me, was the Extraterrestrial Species Almanac. And so, here I am, I'm reading, how's that an extraterrestrial species? Like, that looks like my neighbor, And, but then there was also, all different types of grays, and to your point.
Yeah, that's pretty close. That bottom picture was pretty close.
But yeah, to your point, there's so many grays. And I started reading Elena Denon a lot, and she made this book, which, as she states, the Galactic Federation basically gifted her with this, and she was connected and took notes, and they let her chronicle just hundreds of different species. And when I first started reading this, I'm not look at this one. I was just well, number one, I'm never going to remember all this, And then she came out with a color version now, where she took that same book, but she's breaking it in half, and she's going to do the first half color. But just interesting stuff. In your story, in terms of this other stuff, it seems like the grays that you've been acquainted with are the original grays, the Area 51 grays,
Yeah. Yeah, somebody called them evens or something like that. Yeah, I don't know if they're the original ones, but they're just, I don't know. They're tan skinned, big black eyes, 4 fingers. They have 3 really long fingers, and then they have one that is almost like a thumb, like a double jointed thumb. Their palms are more white than the top of their skin. They wear the little jumpsuits. Yeah, I don't. I mean, they're. I think people would call them the atypical gray alien is what people call them. But there's really nothing atypical about it when you meet them. So for me, it's just this freaky creature I saw. For everybody else, it's like, oh yeah, that's just a regular old gray or whatever. But yeah, atypical gray alien. That's probably your.
Well, some things in your book were just phenomenal to me. You mentioned a fingerprint, and there's this gentleman, and let's see if that comes through. His name is Dan.
Oh yeah.
And he released this. He talked about his job in secret Area 51, and the way you described the fingerprint, being a little bigger on the front, it matches what he's saying about having special nerve endings.
The biophysiological interface between the hand, mind, and the craft, because they have on their hands a number of pads, and there are open nerves which are protected by various glycoproteins, and those glycoproteins are selectively pushed forward or sucked back via capillary action, or they can be through an active fashion pulled back, and it kind of pulls a viscous sheath back and allows the J-rod to have direct interface with the craft. That interested me, although most of it at the time, and still some of it now, I have no understanding of.
Where they would touch you and literally interfere with your processes.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, they 100% they have a pad at the tip. It's very reminiscent of like a frog's toe, where it's really skinny and then it flares out at the end.
All right, so I'm going to go on a quick little tangent here. So Barish, he's the Area 51 guy, microbiologist. He talks about the ET finger. The finger, he talks about it being wider at the end, and he talks about there being a protein structure that rolls back, and when it rolls back, it exposes these nerve endings or nerves in the finger. So what's brilliant about that is that if you're going to affect the synapses, the junctions, neurological functioning in the brain. Inaction potential is what it's called. It's electrical, but it's not electrical. Inaction potential, right? So to connect a thought, think of it like this. You have some energy here and it has to jump a gap and go across. And then when we have a lot of them jumping a gap, boom, boom, that's how the neurons are firing in information. So anyways, acetylcholine is one of the neurological chemicals that impacts memory, and there's a litany of these things. But anyways, if you're going to affect someone's memory, like just make them go to sleep, or make them have any type of episodal phenomenon, what better way to do it? You could do it like Charles Hall alleged the tall whites did it with pen instruments that were more or less microwave instruments, where they were just getting it close to your head, and the microwave would emit, and then it would do that. It would be at the perfect frequency to manipulate whatever chemical you want to manipulate in the person. So if it's a memory issue, you program this pen to do some things, and like Charles White said, the tall whites they actually could kill you, because they would program this to basically cause cells to just pour out, and you would essentially bleed to death. But we won't go into that now. But that's the tall whites. But the grays, being different, don't have an instrument like this. They're a biological machine, is what we're learning here. So they literally can just take their finger. In what better way to program the effect than to just biologically program it with your own thoughts? So, for example, imagine a gray ET saying, I want this person to see everything, or they touch you and you see it, or I want this person to go to sleep, and they touch you and you go to sleep. So it's in other words, they're formulating in their mind what they want to send here, and what particular synapses in your mind they want to manipulate. So it's all there. It's very logical. It couldn't be more logical. So if there's going to be a logical explanation as to how this works, and why they have these fat fingertips that when they touch you or put their finger in your eye, and we've seen all sorts of that. There's been abductees who say like the finger was in their eye. Well, what's behind your eye? You have access to some major nerves, right? So there's a lot going on here. So let's jump back.
But one of the things that I saw them do, when they would pick up tools, they would touch it, the tips of their fingers, and then they would literally, it would my fingers aren't sticky enough, but it would stick to it, and then they'd roll it back into their palm like that. Instead of us, we have a crab claw, we do this. They literally use those fingers like that. They seem to have at least one extra bone in the finger, maybe two. I didn't really get a chance to count, but they definitely had some extra bends in their finger. They were longer. The palm, when I got close enough to see the palm, there were these little chevron shapes on the palm. I couldn't tell what they were. I wondered if maybe there were some sort of pores or something like that. But if you ever see a pig skin, you ever see pig leather dried out and you can really easily see the pores in it? It was like that, where it had a bunch of these little chevron shapes on the palm. I don't want to draw all over my hand, but it like that on the palm. And I thought maybe they were pores of some kind. So their hands, the only thing I could think of that it reminded me of is like an octopus. If you ever seen an octopus reach out, grab something, and then it rolls it back up, that's how they use their fingers all the time, like an octopus's arm. Their bones seemed like maybe they were cartilage, like they could bend more, like they had more of a bend in their wrist bone. Like us, we're very rigid and we can't do that. I can't independently move my wrist, but their bones almost looked like they did a little bit of this, like they were maybe more flexible.
I've got so much I want to ask you. So And you'll hear me mention a lot of books, and of course, part of my mission is I want more people to read your book, and so I hope people don't take that for granted. They need, here's another one. Whitley Strieber's newer book, and I showed this earlier. I mean, this just came out a couple of weeks ago, and but it's like what you're saying, and then what Whitley's saying, and then what you're saying again, and it all adds up. And he's pretty much taken the position of trying to analyze their physiology and see that particular one where they didn't have the black shields on their eyes, and he's taking the Reddit post, which was talking about their anatomy, assuming it's true. And what that resulted in was these are nocturnal creatures that have sight that you would compare more to an owl. They can see what UV we emit, what infrared we emit, but they have an acute, like, owl nighttime vision. Do you think these are indeed nocturnal creatures?
Yeah, well, yeah, I think that they clearly operate at night more than they do the day. I've only seen. I have to be careful with the way I talk because I have so much missing time. But I distinctly remember seeing one of them on a craft without the covers. And the way I explained it to people is like they just had this really big human eye. Like it was just like maybe it looked very similar to ours, but maybe like 3 times the size. Um, that was the only one that I remember seeing without those things on their eyes. Um, I've never seen them blink. I told somebody one time, I was like, I don't even know if they have eyelids because they almost remind me of like a snake or something, where they don't have the ability to close their eyelid. Um, but yeah, I've not read that book. I read So I started to read books about UFOs and stuff a while back, but I just read Whitley Strieber's books, like maybe 2 or 3 of his books in 2021 or 2022. I haven't had a chance to read that one yet. But I've read a lot of the books that you're reading. Not all of them, but I read Chris Bledsoe's book. I read a bunch of Whitley Strieber's books. I can't remember all the books you showed me, but I've read several of them. I will say this: that book you raised up with the child on it, the alien gray one. Yeah, that's really good. That's eerily good. The eyes are really good. They're like almost on a slant. They're way too big. Um, that picture is so good that it's like scary to look at.
That's Brett
Like
Oldham's
makes my heart.
daughter. But he doesn't have access
Yeah,
to her.
that's.
He was,
Oh,
he thinks it was taken, she was, pardon me, possibly taken from her girlfriend or otherwise, you know, created and incubated and so on. But he's been taken on journeys to visit with her.
Yeah, they did the same thing to me in 2018. Um, I chose not to talk about it, but they bring you into a room and they go, "These are your kids," and these are your kids. They're we made them from you, and I'm not. I just don't talk about it much. Um, I don't know whether you can trust these creatures. I don't know whether this is a psychological test. I don't know whether it's legitimate and whether they really created these hybrids or whatever you want to call them. But they've done a very similar thing to me in 2018, where they're like, "These are yours. We made these of you," and you're like, "Okay." But it's really freaky. It's really scary. Um, I chose not to put it in the book. I chose not to talk about it. I At the time I thought maybe I would never tell anybody about it, but I've since kind of, you know, I don't know. It's one of the hardest parts of this entire thing to deal with is that they seem to be taking semen and eggs and blood, and they seem to be
doing these medical things, like making these hybrid creatures, possibly manipulating us. And it's really, for most people, I think it's so hard to deal with that they even exist at all, that it's like a step too far for a lot of people. Um, and I just think that I was so worried about talking about it that I wasn't ready to talk about it. I wasn't ready to admit that happened. But yeah, they've done the same thing to me. Like, they're like, these are yours, and you have no, like, how am I supposed to know? If that's true or not. I don't know. They could have just went in the back and grabbed some creatures and maybe they're manipulating me.
Yeah.
I tell people all the time, they've said a lot of things to me, and I don't know if we should trust them. But
So,
yeah, that's a good picture, though.
I really appreciate your commentary. I'm like a boy in Toys R Us now. I'm pulling these things out, and I'm so happy to get your response on some. So let me pull up a couple more, if it's okay with you. All
Please
right,
do.
cool. This one really affected me when I read it. It was called Walking Among Us. And this is by an author, Jacobs. He's a PhD, and he was researching this. He wrote a few books of this nature, but his philosophy is that we're being invaded. And he had some testimony from women who not only were shown the babies in the craft, but then they were brought to like some type of house where they were teaching basic things like how to eat, how to, I don't know, wash dishes. And it was really phenomenal. And I thought, well, I mean, if that was not true, it would be a boring story, right? Like, okay, because some of the things that they say in here is sort of like the hybrid child would ask just something like, "Why do we smile when someone's laughing or something?" And it would just logically it makes
Right.
sense because it's like I don't have to smile. Why would I? But and so this abductee was having to teach all these children, like a lot of children, just customary things. Any reaction to that?
Yeah, I mean, I know that Whitley Strieber said something similar where they brought this kid, and it was like an outcast. It was all weird because it's in between two completely different groups where it can't function properly. It's not really human, but then it's not really alien. Um, I, sus- I I believe that they probably are doing this. I just don't know what the goal is. Jacobs might be right. It may be a way of kind of ushering in the new humanity while ushering out the old humanity. It may be something of uh, invasion, you know. But it also could be that they are, a lot of people think that they created us and they are literally selectively modifying us. So if instead of thinking about it from like an invasion standpoint, you might want to think about it from like an upgrade standpoint, that they are attempting to upgrade the human genome. And a lot of people, if I told you that an alien, you know, um, did this, a lot of people would be really angry about it. But if I told you that you have, let's say you have telepathy, and I said, well, yeah, you got that because they gave it to you, people would be delighted. It's a superpower. You're really intelligent and you're telepathic, and you have some great healing capabilities, and you can live to be 200 years old. You can fly a craft. People would think that they were Superman given these abilities. So it's I think that they are doing this, but I think it's all in the way you look at it, because I can't tell. There's no way for me to know whether they're doing this nefariously or whether they are legitimately attempting to help us. Some people suspect that they see the human race and they think that we're going to get extinct.
and they are doing whatever they can to preserve us. Some people think that they are here for their own desires, not ours. So I don't know, but I do believe that this genetics program that they're doing is real.
I meant to tell you
Yes,
when I
yes, yes, yes.
first saw your video, and that's how I heard about you. I thought I knew you, and then when I read your book, I was like, wow, he skateboarded too, because I used to skateboard all the time, and so a lot of those stories resonated with me. Going out late and skating, you know, when you can get in the parking lots and
Yeah,
stuff. Awesome stuff.
yeah. When the world is asleep. That was actually, it kind of sucks that I had the encounters because that was one of my favorite things to do. I would come home from school and I would like do my homework and then I'd fall asleep for maybe 3 or 4 hours and then I'd wake up and go out till like 2 or 3 in the morning and then come home, take a shower and kind of get ready for school and go to school. I did that all the time. So I've had several encounters while I was out and it kind of makes you rethink going out. So it kind of limits you in a way where you're kind of spooked, you're kind of worried, like, is it going to happen again? But it was one of those things that it would happen, then it wouldn't happen for months or even a year or two or something like that. So it was like at first it would really scare you. You'd be like, I don't, and then after a while, you go out, nothing happens. You go out, nothing happens, and eventually you kind of let your guard down again, and then out of nowhere it just happens again, where it just randomly.
I feel like if
Yeah.
I was getting abducted in the past, I would never ever know unless they wanted me to. And the only reason I say that is because I'm one of these people like every drug works against me, or every prescription works against me. Anesthesia works perfect on me. I don't have allergies, and so I just feel like I would have no like resistance, or I wouldn't complicate whatever their method is. What about you? Are you allergic to medicines? Like do doc?
Um, I've got some allergies I don't really know about. I've broken out a few times, and I just don't know why. So I never could figure out what I was allergic to. I went to an allergy specialist, and they gave me panel after panel after panel trying to figure out what it was, but they could never figure out what I was allergic to. But yeah, I think that I think they don't want me to remember. And I say that because in 2009, they were literally like, it was, I said afterwards, it was like they were trying to hypnotize me. They kept saying to me over and over, you're not going to remember, you're not going to remember, you're not going to remember, or that I would forget everything, basically. But they're like, you're going to forget, you're going to forget, you're going to forget. And I remember telling them, like, no, I'm not. I'm going to remember all of this. Like, I'm not going to forget. I think for whatever reason, I am more immune to it than other people. That would be my guess. That for whatever reason, I am harboring more memories. And I also think that when I started getting violent with them, it really changed the relationship where I don't even know how to. Somebody said to me one time, he said, once you become aware that this is happening, they completely change the way they treat you. And in 2009, they completely changed the way they treated me. They started answering questions. They started treating me more like a threat to them, like I was a danger to be around, like, I might do something to them, or if they weren't watching me, that I might hurt them or something like that. I suspect it's because I remembered what happened. That's what I suspect. I think they didn't want me to remember. I did remember. For whatever reason, they weren't able to hallucinate or hypnotize me or whatever you want to call it. And yeah, it definitely seemed to change the relationship. One of the other things was I asked them, this was in 2016. So I asked them if there was anything that they could do for me to help me deal with the fear. If there was any way that they could help me get over the fear of the encounters. And 2 times in 2016, they showed up and they didn't do anything. Like the one night I woke up, the creature was standing outside the window. I saw him, he saw me.
And then he just left. He just ran away. The second time, it was around 9 o'clock at night. I went outside and went around the side of the house, and that was the time I chased that creature. He was maybe 40 feet away from me, just a gray alien. I stopped, I paused, and I was like, oh my gosh, are they going to abduct me? And there was nothing. He didn't try to telepathically communicate with me. It was like he wanted me to he wanted to show himself, and then he just immediately ran away. It was like they were trying to, I asked them if there was any way they could help me deal with the fear, and it was, to me, it seemed like they were just showing themselves and maybe trying to show me that I didn't have anything to be afraid of. That, if that makes any sense. Maybe that's not the truth. Maybe they were trying to abduct me, and for whatever reason, they weren't able to hypnotize me or something like that. But I always thought they were just trying to help me to deal with the fear. That's just what I thought. I don't know if that's true, but
Yeah, it's a phenomenal set of encounters that you have. And I guess two things really quick about the fear. In my perception, just as a reader of the book, compared with other abduction stories, I felt like they know you well, they like you. They don't express themselves like we would, according to the way you related it. I mean, they're still stern and serious. Like their composure isn't silly by any means. I've never seen anyone saying they're silly. But do you think that with and we've all had or seen a good throwdown on YouTube, but do you think in these moments where you're literally attacking them, are they 100% serious and scared, or do you think they're like a level above where they're kind of like looking down like this is kind of humorous, he's attacking us, but they don't express it that way?
no, I actually felt the exact opposite. I felt that they took it extremely seriously. They the female, that in 2009 when I tried to stab that female creature, I mean, I flipped them off, I've thrown pillows at them, I've screamed, I've tried to wake other people up, I've tried to run away on occasions, I tried to hide on occasions. I tried to drive into them, I tried to wreck my car into them one time. So I literally tried, yeah, so they came out in the middle of the road, and I started to stop because I didn't want to wreck the car, but I was like, "F it," and I just whomp, and and they lifted up, yeah, they lifted up a few feet, and I drove straight underneath it, and then they just kind of chased me for a while, followed the car. That was really scary. I do think they know me really well. I think they know that I'm combative. I think they know that I could hurt them, and they seem to take it really seriously. Um, but in 2009 when I tried to stab that female creature, she legitimately seemed terrified. Like she threw her hands up and stepped back. Like she seemed legitimately afraid that I might kill her, and they seemed to take it extremely seriously. To me, what it seemed like is once they have control of you, once they're able to kind of control you, they don't worry about you at all. But in that moment where they're attempting to capture you, like right before they try to grab you, there's a moment of vulnerability where they are not. This is why I keep telling people I don't think they're angels or demons. They look like biological creatures. I've seen their veins. They have veins that go up on the side of their face. And their skin is so thin that you can see their veins pumping. To me, they look like, I think they're biological creatures. I don't know if somebody made them or whatever, but they seem completely and totally frail to me. Like you can hurt them, you can kill them, you can shoot them, and they take that threat to be really serious. I don't think they laugh at it. I think they look at us as kind of almost like a lower life form, that we're extremely combative and we're kind of dangerous. But once they have control of us, then then they kind of look down on us. Like
I don't even know how to
So,
explain that. But
Travis Walton, everyone, most people know his story. He did that. If you remember, he jumped up. He had a utensil and fought with him.
yeah.
But you take the cake. I mean, in terms of like conflict with ETs, you've had a lot of this. Um, do you think that
Yeah.
built your rapport with them? Kind of like in high school, people fight and then they're friends.
I think I think what it did was it made them treat me differently. So instead of treating me like the average piece of cattle that they're like, just load them up, there's they opened up kind of a, I don't want to say a respect, but they have a greater, it's almost like they try to calm me now. Like the first thing they do is they say, "Don't be afraid. We're not going to hurt you, but we need you to come with us." And it's almost like a moment of apprehension where they're like trying to work out a deal. Like don't throw anything, don't fight, just come on, come on. It's almost like you see like the prison guards and they're trying to get a prisoner out that's violent, and he's like, "Come on, man, can't we just do this the easy way?" It's almost like that, where there's this moment of like, they're like, "Don't make us hurt you," and I'm like, "Don't make me hurt you," and there's this kind of stalemate that happens. But every single time, I've said this to people a bunch of times, every single time I've ever seen them, they said the same thing. They say, "Do not be afraid, we mean you no harm." And once that moment of tension once that happens, they're much more forthcoming now. Before that, I think they treated me just like any other person that they're just going to snatch, do these tests, and drop them off. And I think that it created a ripple in that, where they have to modify the way they treat me in order to get me to do what they want to do. So it opened up this kind of line of communication that perhaps wouldn't have been there otherwise.
When you saw the ET on the well, two times, you had a couple of these on the other side of the shed or in the other story, and you decided, I'm going to get this thing, I'm going to catch it. Were you in your right mind, or
Yeah.
was it foggy? Were you still under the influence of some kind of drugging or hypnotic effect?
No, I don't think they had time. I like I said, in my mind, I think they just wanted to show themselves and then leave. I think they were trying to get me used to it. Like they wanted to let me know that I didn't have to be, every time I saw them, I didn't have to be afraid of being taken. They were just going to show themselves and then go. They had no intention of grabbing me. The creature didn't do anything to me. I was under my own faculties. I was completely fine. I didn't feel hypnotized or drugged or anything like that. I just wanted, I know this sounds crazy. The reason I chased after it is because I was, number one, it was by itself, which usually there's like three of them. So even if you can grab one or anything like that, you've got several more to deal with. So I was like, it's alone, it's by itself. And I was like, if I can just grab it, then I can show the world that this is happening. That I'm not crazy. Like, these creatures are real. Like, and maybe I could get some help, because at the time I desperately wanted anybody to help me, to listen to me. I mean, it takes a tremendous psychological toll on you to go through this by yourself. At the time, my girlfriend had seen her first UFO, but she had never seen an alien or anything like that. So she didn't believe. She was like, she saw the UFO and she was like, "Oh, maybe it's just some government thing. Like, maybe it's some government program or something." So my girlfriend was no help. In fact, I would say at the time, she made it even harder to deal with, because I had no one I could talk to. I couldn't talk to her because she didn't believe in this stuff. You know, like I said before, the government's not going to help you. Most of your family isn't going to help you. Your girlfriend's not going to help you. So in that moment, I was like, if I can just grab that thing, I could show the world, and we could, maybe we can begin to heal, and we could start fixing this thing. And so I started running at it, and I think that it just wanted to get away from me. Like its reaction was just to run. It just wanted to it didn't want me to hurt it. It did not talk to me until it jumped the fence. When it jumped the fence, it looked back and locked eyes with me. And in that moment, it told me that it could have killed me if it wanted to. It said that, so when I ran around the shed, so there's 2 sheds. I mean, technically in the story, there's 3. There's our shed, there's a property next door with 2 sheds lined up. So I chased it from the side of our shed around the back of the property, and it came around the corner and hid behind these sheds, right? And so when I came around the corner, I was looking for it, and I didn't realize it was standing there. It was so dark. There's a bunch of trees over there. So it was standing in a little cluster of trees. When I turned the corner, I didn't see it, so I kept running. I kept moving. And anyway, I heard a noise behind me, and I turned around just enough time to see it jump the fence. So I heard it when it grabbed the top of the fence. And when it turned around and locked eyes with me, it told me that it was standing right behind me when I had turned. So it was 2-3 feet behind me, and I had no idea it was there. And it told me that it was behind me, and that if it wanted to kill me, it could have killed me when I gave it my back. Like it could have. It's telepathy's hard to explain, but it showed me in my mind. It was looking at me from behind, and it could have basically cut my throat if it wanted to.
I love that you've shared that, and it. I'm here to learn about what it is. We're so used to learning things downstream. Like I can literally go to biology class, and my textbook tells me all about these things. Well, now we're looking upstream, or however you say it, and we're trying to discover something that is potentially, a predator to us, right? And what you say there is phenomenal, because it means the creature has a predatorial instinct. Like it told you that it had that ability to think in that way.
Yeah, no, it told me if it wanted to kill me, it could have, and then it ran away, and I was so freaked out when it told me it could have killed me. I don't even know how to explain this to you. From the moment I saw it to the moment that I tried to chase it, I never once thought that it might hurt me. I never even considered the possibility that it would try to hurt me. I was like, if I can just grab it, they're so small. Like if I could just grab this little guy, yeah, and I even thought to myself, I'm going to just hold him, and I'm just going to run to the police station, with him kicking, But anyway, I never thought about the possibility of them trying to hurt me. And when he told me he could have killed me if he wanted to, I froze, because I was like, well, I don't want to keep chasing him because he might kill me. So he jumped that little fence, and then he ran down the fence line, and there is a bunch of trees on the other side of our house. I'm pretty sure, I didn't see him run across the street, but what it looked like is he was running across the street into that cluster of trees, and there's like a big I forget what I want to say, like an opening. There's a big clearing. So it's like a cluster of trees, and then maybe 10, 12 feet in, there's a big clearing. I suspect he ran into those trees, but I lost sight of him because there were some trees down at the end of the road. So when he got close to the roadway, like he was going to run out in the middle of the road, I lost sight of him. And I kind of froze for a second, and then I just ran inside, and I slammed the door and locked it. And my girlfriend was like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "I seen somebody in the backyard." Mm-hmm. And she was like, "Who was it?" And I was like, "It was some kind of person." And she was like, what do you mean?" I was like, "Somebody was in the backyard." And she was like, "Okay." And I was just like, "I don't want to talk about it." And I feel bad. I eventually told her what I saw, but I had such a hard time talking to her because she didn't believe in any of this stuff, like at all. So just imagine I walk inside and I say, "I just saw a gray alien outside." She just goes, "Yeah, right. There's no way. That's not real." So I didn't tell her at that moment, but later on we had a few encounters, and I eventually told her everything. I was like, that night it wasn't a human being. It was an alien. And she was like, "What do you mean it was an alien?" I was like,
it was an alien. She said, I thought you said it was a person. I said, no. I said it was some kind of person, but it was not human. It was this 4.5 foot tall creature. And she was like, well, tell me what happened. And I told her the whole story, but I didn't have anybody to talk to at that time. Like, I was pretty much alone, and you just kind of have to suffer it. Like, that night I stayed up for hours. I couldn't fall asleep. She fell asleep, and I was just laying there worried that they might come back and take me again. Are they still outside? Like, I never saw it leave. So I never saw it like fly away. So I was like, are they still outside? Are they waiting to come back? Or, so that it freaked me out. I mean, that it wasn't that bad. That was probably one of my better encounters where it wasn't terrible, but it's still like, it put me on edge. Like,
So,
are they, was, yeah, it doesn't
well,
matter.
so where are you at today? So, it's understood that I suppose every encounter is a different encounter, because it seems to me, especially from a lot of the testimony in your book, it's like you can't shake that visceral, like natural reaction of being spooked. And so,
Yeah.
where are you at today? Is it still kind of like, if you're abducted, it could go either way. It could go angry, aggressive, or it could go, I'm peaceful, and what's the trigger moment here?
Okay, so the last abduction I had was in September, and I don't really remember anything. Like, I saw the creature and I started to panic a little bit, like, oh my gosh, they're going to take me again. And then I just blacked out. And the next day, physically I was kind of hurt. My body hurt and stuff like that. But mentally I was fine. I wasn't all messed up about it. Almost exactly a year before that was probably one of my most, it was a really strange experience, but it was not that bad. So what happened was, right behind me, there's the back of the house. There's a field right here. My girlfriend was asleep. This was early in the night. This was really early. So she had just fallen asleep, and there was this massive concussion, and it shook the whole house. In fact, we have a hanging mirror in our bedroom, and it shook off the wall like that. So anyway, she immediately was like, what's that? And so I jumped up and ran out to go see what it was. And I went to the kitchen to look out the window. And she was like, why are you looking out the window? I was like, but it came from the backyard. And she was like, are you sure? And I was like, yeah, I was awake. It came from behind the house. And so she went over. So I ran over, grabbed the flashlight, went out the front door to go around to see what it was. And I didn't think it was aliens or anything. In my mind, I thought maybe it was an explosion or something like that. And we have a farm. There's a farm right here. So I thought, like, oh, maybe there was an explosion of his propane tanks went up, or maybe one of his tractors blew up. So I ran around the corner of the house right here. Before I got to the backyard, I had the flashlight, and I got maybe a few feet from the corner of the house. And then instantly I got a telepathic message. In the message, there was a craft on the ground in the backyard. I could see several creatures standing around it. So it was in the corner of that field on the grass. Then I saw that there was a creature. The creature that was talking to me was on the roof. He was standing at the edge of the roof right here, looking down at me. He literally had eyes on me. So I threw my hands up and literally just yelled out. I was like, I mean you no harm. And he told me telepathically to stop and to go, because he said, don't get any closer, because if you do, you'll get sick. So he told me if I got any closer to the craft that was on the ground, that I would have some sort of sickness. And so in response to that, I threw my hands up and I said, I mean you no harm, something like that. I said, like, I mean you no harm, but I think I said something else too. I can't remember what it was. And then I just took several large steps back, and then I spun around and ran inside. When I ran in the front door, my girlfriend met me. Like, we both ran into each other, And she started screaming. She was like, "Is that you? Is that you?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And she was like, "Was that you in the backyard?" And I was like, "I didn't go in the backyard." And she grabbed me and yanked me inside, and she slammed the door and she locked it. She was like, and then she was like, "Was that you?" And I was like, I wasn't in the backyard." And she was like, "That wasn't you." And I was like, "I never went back there." And she said, "I thought it was weird because you didn't have a flashlight." And I was like, she said, "I saw you take the flashlight." And she was like, "I was wondering why you would go back in the backyard without the flashlight turned on." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And she said, "When you went out the front door, I went to the kitchen window to look outside to see if I could see, what was going on." And she said she saw somebody, a person, go by that window. And she told me a few days later that she said it was shorter than I was. It had a more round head than I was. And she was uncomfortable telling me that she saw it. So she kept saying, like, she said something like, "Oh, maybe it was just a shadow. Maybe it was nothing." She was like, I don't know. I don't know. It just looked like a person. I don't know. I don't know who it was. I don't know what it was. But she was really freaked out.
Is there anything
Anyway,
like on your current agenda, like if you happen to have another abduction where there's you're cognizant and there's a moment to kind of chit chat with them, do you have like a top 1, 2, 3 issues that you need to talk to them about?
Yeah, but they're all like, I mean, my girlfriend's really sick. She's got autoimmune disease. So I've asked if they will heal her. I mean, that's probably like the number one thing that I want is because I know they have this technology. They've got this medical technology. So that's like the number one thing that I want is if they'll help her. Besides that, it's all superficial stuff. I want to, maybe they'll give me a UFO, which I don't think they're going to do. I ask them to teach me all the time. I always ask them if they could teach me. But yeah, it's all superficial stuff. It's not, I don't really think that they're going to give me the keys to the universe. You know what I mean? So those are the only things I could think of off the top of my mind is I've asked them to help my girlfriend. I've asked if they would teach me teach me physics, teach me technology. If they know how to build these craft. They know how they function. They know how they maneuver. I want them to teach me that so I can understand how these craft function and maneuver. And maybe one day I could build myself a craft like this. So I asked for them to help my girlfriend. I asked for them to teach me. And every once in a while I just ask if they'll take me because I want to fly in one of the craft. That's my favorite part. So those are the only things I really ask for. And by the way, it's not like they've given it to me. It's not like they've showed up and helped me. But every time I see like a UFO or an orb or whatever, I just always ask those same things. So I guess those would be, if I ever do have another encounter, I guess those are top of my list.
Thank you for sharing this. I know that was somewhat of an intimate question, but it's also like a grand curiosity. I can imagine the frustration. Like you can't just you've seen stuff. You know it's real more than other people do, but you can't just snap your fingers and say, I'm ready to go meet you outside at 8. That's got to be just frustrating.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, they have rules. They one of the things they always say is they keep saying the program and the mission. Those are two of the things they say it over and over. Whatever this program is that they are doing, whatever this mission is that they're on, they seem to have rules. They have ways that they go about it. For example, these Greys, they don't seem to want to kill me. They seem like every once in a while they have to tell me, like, please stop, like, so we don't have to hurt you. So they seem to have rules about the way they do things. I wish it was as easy as just asking them and then they just do whatever you want. I would be sitting on a pile of gold in a spaceship right now.
but it doesn't, you know, whatever their rules are that they're playing by, I don't understand them. And they don't seem to be very forthcoming. Maybe that's what I should ask, is what are the rules that they're playing by? Like, you know, what, you know, everybody wants like to answer these questions, and maybe I'm the wrong person to ask them, because that's not my, I don't really care what the rules are. I really don't care where they come from or what they're doing. I guess maybe I'm too selfish and I want things that will help me, like my girlfriend, and I want to understand, you know, I would rather them teach me science than to give me the answers to these questions. I just don't, I don't care that much. Other people do. So maybe I'm the wrong guy to, you know,
No,
I don't know if that
that's
makes sense
very
to you,
modest, Justin. I
but
mean, I felt the same way. You know, I felt like um, if I had an encounter to, of course, be like, hey, you can trust me, right? And so, like exactly like you're saying, teach me something, you know, and I promise I will put it to good use. The pro the
right,
program, I want to talk about that really quick because this is the alleged interview of what was her name, Matilda O'Donnell McElroy. She was supposedly the nurse who ended up being the telepath for that creature that did not die in the crash. And before it died, she
right,
was with it and she did this long interview with it. But what's awesome is the people in the room didn't know exactly what was going on. They had their own private conversation because, you know, it was telepathy, and she released it all in these notes slash memoirs. And one thing that I've never been able to let go of after reading that book was they said to her just straight, like, we are the I think they called it the domain. We're the domain, and we are the largest, like most powerful in the universe. Like that's what it is. It was kind of like a non-negotiable position that these are the head honchos. Do you get that feeling?
Mhm. Oh yeah, no, I mean I definitely get the feeling that whatever they are, whatever this group is, or they are immensely powerful. Um, Technologically, I think they still have vulnerabilities, but in terms of technology, they seem to have figured out manipulation of time and space in a way that humans still are arguing of whether it's even possible. So if you want to look at it from that perspective, they definitely seem to have dominion over wherever they are, and which led me to believe like maybe they are, um, you know, maybe they are kind of kickstarting our civilization. Maybe that's their role as, you know, a more advanced species. Kind of the way that humans build houses, you know, where we are constructing an environment for something else to grow. Like maybe they are kind of constructing our environment to kind of get us off the ground floor. You know what I mean? Um, but yeah, they definitely. I mean, it's hard to explain to somebody something that's so powerful and advanced, yet still vulnerable. I truly believe that are uh, they've not ascended past the physical body. I don't believe that. Maybe I'm wrong, but they seem like they're physical creatures with just, you know, an immense knowledge, an immense technology. Um, you know, so it's kind of like some people might call him like a demigod, like not quite
Mhm.
God, but not immortal either. They're right there on that threshold between, you know, the most advanced anything in the universe and, you know, the second most advanced, if you want to call it that. But yeah, I've never read that book. I'll have to look it
I,
up because that's
I will send
incredibly
you a
interesting.
copy. Gratis. I got another question for you, Justin. Um, I, I love research, and anyone who I can talk to that's into this stuff, it's like, yes, a new friend. So, um, I've gotten to this point where I'm just extremely confused with the Travis Walton case, and I guess there's not a great picture of it here, but I'll flip through. This was Travis Walton when he was showing resistance towards what we'll call the Greys. But then all of a sudden, he went in a different room in the craft, and he encountered these what I guess are called Nordics, and they didn't talk to him though.
Yeah.
What the heck?
Yeah, they don't talk. Yeah. Well, here's the thing. From what I understood, I think the Greys didn't talk to him either. When he woke up after getting electrocuted, and maybe I'm wrong about this, but I think he saw them. He grabbed the pipe and was trying to hit them, and they were like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa!" and they left because he was being violent. And so he ran to go look for help or whatever, and he runs into this human-looking person, and he's like, "Help me!" And they just don't talk to him at all. I wonder if it's because he got his brain hurt. Like if they're all telepathic, and he almost died, and he just got mortally wounded. It may be that he just can't
You're spot
communicate
on.
with them
That
at
makes
all.
so much sense.
Yeah.
Justin, but answer me this, or take a gander is a better way to put it. So with these folks with the blonde hair and the blue shirts and so on, Elena Denon is kind of at the forefront saying these are the new ETs kind of organizing the Galactic Federation and so on and so forth. But when I see something like the Travis Walton case, which that I mean, it may not contradict because there may be so many different Greys, but it's like, well, in his story, they seem to be kind of aligned if that was who they were, or I read it differently. First, I was like, if they're not talking to Travis, then maybe they're like cloned beings that the Greys are making as decoys to the real Galactic Federation. But it's this swirling thing, what is the Galactic Federation, going all the way back to the 50s and the Friends and the Greys, and it's a conundrum.
Have you heard that story? Which is it's Rivera out of Puerto Rico. He had an encounter with craft, and some jets chased it, and he was abducted by gray aliens.
I wanted to get his book. I could, and I speak Spanish a little bit enough, but I couldn't even get a Spanish copy. I've only seen him on like snippets talking about Puerto Rico UFOs. So I want to learn about that.
Yeah, I think it's Amari Rivera, I believe. So anyway, his case, he said, so this is what he said. There's this craft, 2 jets come, they chase this thing, they're circling it, right? He freaks out, he leaves, he goes home, he sleeps for hours and hours. But what he said was when they took him, when these Greys grabbed him out of his car, they stopped his car, they grabbed him, he was panicking. He said he was taken to an auditorium with dozens of people, right? And he said a humanoid, looked very human. He said something to the effect of like, he looked like he could pass for, someone on the earth. He said he came out, he was telling them, he was warning them about some disaster that might happen in the near future. And he was basically saying Puerto Rico wouldn't be there anymore, like it would be wiped out by this, I believe he said like a comet or asteroid or something would like mess up Puerto Rico. He said during this guy's presentation, he noticed that a bunch of people were looking at the gray alien that was standing next to him. And so he looked at it, he grabbed it and picked it up and was like, you don't have to worry about these. These are like our helpers. And the reason I bring that up is because, it's for us, we have no idea. Are the humans on top? Are the Greys on top? Are they? But I do think that if these gray aliens are genetically created, like a lot of people say, and they're being used as like a biological robot, I think that would make a lot of sense, where you have these Nordics and they're using them, and you have, other gray alien species are using them.
If there really is a galactic federation, it may be that these are just their. It would be like our robots, and so you might see a little bit of variation in them from group to group, maybe skin color or height or something like that. But ultimately, they're just a worker race that they're literally creating and using specifically for these missions that they're going on. I think that I don't know if that's true, but I heard one other thing. I heard from somebody, they used to work for the government, and he said that when they talk about gray aliens, they talk about two different kinds. They talk about uh, what they call grays, and then they have what they call the other grays, which are like a and I also heard that they claim that one of the gray species was like an original species, and another is like a clone species. I don't know if that's true at all, but I think it's kind of like if we leave the Earth, right? Let's say we leave and we go out, and in 10,000 years, there's going to be 20 planets with human beings on it. We're all going to be a little bit different. We might be in a situation where you have a bunch of different types of gray aliens from different places. You have a bunch of humanoids from different places, and it's just such a rat's nest that you can never really tease out who's who.
Exactly. I think you're spot on there. And I always think of Star Wars in the bar scene with all the different creatures when Han Solo goes in there. But then to your point, how many shades of gray, right? Literally gray aliens. Well, if you could, put that on your list to ask if you ever get a chance. That would be just so amazing to learn about.
Yeah. Who are these people? Where are you from? The only thing. So, one of the nights in 2018 afterwards, I see the problem is I don't remember what happened. I blacked out, and the next morning when I woke up, I just had contiguous universe in my head over and over and over and over, and it didn't go away until I Googled it. And at the time, I didn't even know what that meant. I didn't know. I had never heard the word contiguous before. I didn't know what it meant. So I thought maybe they meant continuous. I didn't realize it was a real word, but it just over and over in my head. And so I looked it up. When I typed it into Google, the first thing that came up was the definition, nearby or neighboring. So the contiguous universe, a nearby universe. But like the second thing was leaked documents from Hillary Clinton, and it was Hillary Clinton's email server, and it was documents, correspondence between Edgar Mitchell, the astronaut Edgar Mitchell, and John Podesta. And in those documents, it talked about our friends from the contiguous universe. So imagine you have a UFO encounter, you black out, you wake up, and you just got contiguous, like you have just contiguous universe in your head over and over and over again, and you can't shake it. And then when you look it up, the very first thing is an admission between two high-ranking people in the government that there is such a thing as people from the contiguous universe. I mean, it was explosive for me at the time, and I was like, I wonder if this is where, but I don't know. See, I don't know who I met that night. I don't know what they did to me. That's the only little piece of information that I got was that. So I never tell people, when people ask me, like, where are they from? I never tell them they come from another universe or anything like that. I just tell them I don't know. But that is the only inkling that I've ever gotten from all my experiences of where they might be from. But I don't know.
When I was at the Skywatch with Ilana Danan, and she summoned a craft, and it was the triangle craft, it's like, well, it would have been better if it was an orb or a saucer, because now, instead of more answers and more clarity, I have more questions, right? Because the triangle is always associated with the government, and our conference was miles from NORAD. So did she summon like the Space Force, or is this really like Galactic Federation in conjunction? Because I went to a Lou Elizondo presentation last week, and he shows a TR3B on a slide, and he says, there's some nuggets in here, if you can notice them. And of course, in the center of the TR3B, I caught it right away, was small letters, Tesla coil. Okay, so is that kind of like, this is a U.S. invention, or was Tesla gifted the Tesla coil, right? So there's conflicting stories intersecting here.
Yeah. Hey, when you went to that presentation, and it said Tesla coil, was that in the center
Absolutely.
of the crowd?
It was the center circle of the triangle, and right there, Tesla coil.
Yeah. The reason I asked that is because in 2018, when I saw the triangle, so I seen it on the ground, and I saw it take off and fly away. It had three lights on the corner, one on each corner, and they seemed to be protruding from the craft almost. Like they almost looked like a sphere that was recessed into the corner, and kind of, if that makes sense to you, like think about like a pod light. You have a hole, but inside the hole you got a light bulb. So the three lights on the corner seemed like they were recessed kind of orbs, but they looked like they were covered in plasma. But it had a center light, and the center light was flashing very bright, kind of white. But it was flashing a bunch of times, and it didn't seem like there was any like pattern to it, like almost like lightning or something. Like have you ever looked at those novelty plasma balls with your finger on it, and right, that center light literally seemed to be flashing kind of like random, like a plasma or a lightning or something like that. So if it is some type of Tesla coil, I wonder, have you ever seen the Tesla coil shooting off light? It's so random. I wonder if that is true, if it is some type of Tesla coil.
I brought this piece of paper to show you. Did you ever look at the Bob Lazar design? It might be hard to see, but what they...
Oh yeah,
sport model, pretty simple, just the three amplifiers and something in the center. Any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, really nice and smooth. I don't know about the propulsion systems, but when I tell people all the time is I've seen them rotate. So the way he describes the inside of the craft, the chairs, the curves, everything, perfect radius, perfect cut, perfect smooth, perfect rotation, everything is blended. Like the way he described it, he said it reminded him of somebody that made like a wax mold, and then they melt the wax and they pour metal into it, where it's like everything is perfect. Like it's so perfect that it looks like it just grew that way. And that's one thing that I agree with him. When he said that they fly on their side, I've seen the saucers do that. I've seen them rotate 90 degrees and then fly away. They point their belly towards whatever they're going towards. So I've seen that in person. I don't know anything about element 115 or 116 or what. They never showed me that kind of stuff to my recollection. They never took me into the engine room and were like, this is the engine, this is how everything works. They just didn't give me that sort of information. So if I had to guess, I think he's telling the truth, would be my guess. But there's no way for me to back it up. But some of the details that he had I know for fact they're accurate. Yeah. Like the way they look at, I know they're accurate.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's very incredible in my eyes. But it's just like cars. There's so many different models, and I look at some of these crafts, like back in the day, the Palladium craft that visited Billy Meyer, and they look old, and now they just keep improving designs, I suppose.
Right. They said Billy Meyer was a liar and he was full of it. And then you have Bob Lazar, and they're like, Bob Lazar goes, well, I hate to say it, but it looked just like that. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I don't. My somebody asked me why they thought my story was so important, and I said, well, I don't. And they said, well, why do you think that you should tell everybody, why do you think it's important enough to go out and tell people? And I said, my story is the only one that I know that's true. Like, I can't speak for anybody else, but my story is the only one that I know. Like, this is exactly what happened because I was there. Um, there are so many similarities in some of these stories that either I think there's one of two things happening. Either people are copying each other and putting out information, or they're legitimate, where there's overlap because these creatures, they're flying in very similar vehicles. They look very similar. Like I think what's her name? Betty and Barney Hill. I think she said the color of their overalls was like blue or something like that. Besides that detail, she describes creatures that look almost exactly like the ones I saw. That one little detail is between the black jumpsuit and the blue jumpsuit was the only real detail that was different. When we talk about it, to me, it makes the most sense that we're seeing all these similarities because there's just dramatic overlap. Where if it is exactly what we think it is, and people are having contact, then you should see reoccurring similarity every time. Like if you read a story about like the police doing a drug bust or something, like the DEA does a drug bust, it's almost the same story as every single other DEA story out there. It's like 5 o'clock. They showed up. They surrounded they threw a flashbang in. They were all wearing bulletproof vests. If it's real, then you should see that reoccurring similarity over and over.
Let me jump back to your book really quick, and because I made some notes here, stuff that was really interesting to me. You had a very interesting story with a young girl, and this was you described her. Was it magic she was performing?
Oh yeah, no, she just said that. I don't know if that's true or not, but yeah. So what happened with that little girl's name was Erica. So there was a woman that lived behind our house. She was an older woman. She was in poor health, but she was a foster mother to, I mean, probably 5 or 6 girls over the years. And I think at the time she might have had 2 girls that she took on. And one of their names was Erica. So the night before, I had this encounter with these creatures. So I woke up, I saw a light in the window. I went over, there was a sphere that was going around in a circle. It was probably about 20 feet away from the house. It was probably 2 feet off the ground, and it was just doing this. I got scared because I didn't know what it was, and it freaked me out. I ran over and hid in bed, and I heard somebody come in the back door, and when they turned into the bedroom, I saw lights on the wall, and I saw silhouettes, like people. They came in the house. I could hear them walking on the floor. They came up behind me, and I was really scared. I didn't want to look because I was just scared. So, but they stabbed me with something real sharp in my back, right in the center of my back. And then I blacked out. And then I kind of remember them standing there. I think we were in my bedroom still, but it was 3 of them, and they looked like gray aliens. One of them had like a little thing, and it had like a little light coming out the end, almost like Harry Potter, like a magic wand or whatever. Or at the time, I thought it reminded me of a long stem candle. If you light the end of the candle and you hold it, that's what it reminded me of at the time. So anyway, I blacked out.
All right, so really quick,
Justin, as far as I've spoke with him through text and offline and stuff, he's not really so familiar with Charles Hall. I mean, I think he's seen the documentary, but I'm not sure that he's read all the books. Anyways, the Millennia Hospitality series by Charles Hall, which is kind of a funny name for that. He's got a lot of stories in here talking about the tall whites. And the tall whites, they wear these suits that basically let them float, and they kind of float across the desert. And what Justin's describing here is just totally a tall white thing. I can't see it any other way. Especially, he talked about the foster parent and the tall white. So one of the biggest things that was important to the tall whites was getting Charles to not babysit the tall whites, but kind of like chaperone them. They had this program where they would get all the kids together, and then the kids would experience things, whether that be Charles Hall unconscious and they're poking him with a stick, or whether he's interacting with them, or they're in his car, or they're looking through his things. But the kids were very curious. So the fact that Justin's talking about kids together with some old lady, and they're sort of like a foster parent, but at the same time these kids can do magic, and the magic that they can do is exactly what Charles Hall says the tall white people can do. They have the magic wand, which that's their claim to fame, but also these bubble crafts and these bubble suits and that sort of thing. So it's very interesting. And I will say, what is it? Anomalous in Vegas on YouTube. I mean, he films over the Area 51 landscape all the time, and more or less. And you see these orbs, they're like the floating bubbles, and they're always floating. And when I went to Area 51 myself, it was the same deal. I drove down the dirt road for as long as it took, and when it got dark and I turned around and came back, I saw the floating bubble things. They're there. What are they? I don't know. But according to Charles Hall, it's the tall whites. And they're either in their bubble suit, or that's their egg-shaped craft. Like we see Jake Barber and talking about this egg. I mean, the egg craft is a tall white craft. Charles Hall's been saying it. It's been said forever that tall white craft is one of theirs. But anyways, so let's get back to Justin and his experience. What I think is with some tall white children that were or are being babysat, or they're really in charge, but they're in the custody of whoever this old lady is. So back to the action.
When I come to, I'm floating at the end of the driveway. Like, I'm probably like 30 feet off the ground, and there are electrical wires right there. So I literally was floated down past these electrical wires, and the moment my feet touched the ground, it like let go of me, and I just ran inside. I was still in my pajamas. I had no socks on. I went in the front door. I left the front door wide open. I ran back into my dad's room, and I busted in the room. And when I busted in the room, I broke the door. I hit the door so hard that I ripped out one of the screws in the door of the, I forget what they're called, but the plate on the inside of the door, that little metal plate that's got two screws in it. I literally ripped one out, and it spun around the other one. I woke my dad up, and I was like, Dad, 3 witches with candles took me. And he was like, what? And I said, 3 witches with candles took me from my room. And my dad said, oh, it's probably nothing. And then he was like, go to bed or whatever. And he grabbed me and tossed me over his shoulder. My mom was laying, on the other side of the bed. So it was one of those things. My dad, if you wake him up in the middle of the night, he would kind of give you to mom, like, hey, deal with this, kind of thing. So he tossed me over, and then he fell right back asleep. The next day, he yelled at all of us for the front door being open. So the next morning, he was like, somebody left their door wide open. You're letting all the heat out of the house. And he's screaming and yelling. And then he went to work. And that little girl came over to see if we wanted to play, her and a friend. And my brother went and hung out with the one girl, and I went and hung out with the other girl. And that day, So I tried to tell my mom what happened, and my mom would just go, "Okay, okay." She never said like, "You're a liar," or "You're telling the truth," or she was one of those women that she would just talk to you, "Mom, I saw this, I saw that, whatever," and she would just go, "Okay, okay," and then when you're done, she'd be like, "Okay, you want a sandwich or whatever," like. So I tried to tell my mom, and she just wouldn't talk to me, and I didn't know what this was. I was young, I was scared, I was freaked out. So anyway, the little girl comes over. We go out in the yard and we're playing. And so I'm like, I'm going to tell her what happened. So I tell her that I saw these. I said, they were witches, right? I said, these witches, they took me, whatever. And she said, don't worry about that. That was just me and my friends. She said, last night, me and my friends went outside and we got dressed in these long white robes and we danced with candles in the backyard. And she was like, you don't have to be afraid. It's just me and my friends. And I was like, oh, that's not true. That's not what I saw at all.
I,
Right. But she said that it was her and her friends. And I was like, she's clearly just making it up. But the other thing is, I didn't see, I didn't. It's hard to explain to people. I called them witches because of my grandmother. My grandmother told me this story when I was a kid. She said, she basically said, if you don't eat all your lunch, a witch is going to come take you. And she said, and I was like, I didn't know what witches were. So I was like, what's a witch? And she said, they have big black eyes and they can fly and they do dark magic and they take little boys and little girls who are bad and who don't eat all their lunch. So when these creatures, they've got like a candle or something, I don't know what, a light, and they can fly and they're taking me. So in my mind, I was like, they must be witches. So when I told her that they were witches that took me, she was like, "Oh, it was just my friends, and we're good witches, and we're not going to hurt you, and all this stuff." And I was like, "That's not what I saw at all. I didn't see three women with long white gowns dancing in a circle. I saw a craft, and I saw these three, what we would call today as gray aliens." But yeah, so I was like, that's not what I saw.
uh,
But yeah, I stopped calling them witches
yeah,
after that.
for what it's worth, I was like, that's exactly what Charles Hall was talking about. Charles Hall wrote 5, 6 books. One was his physics theory,
Yeah,
and but it was the tall whites, and he was sent to the Area 51 complex, and he encountered exactly that. But in his story, they were holding pencils, not wands.
pencils.
And
Yeah,
but the same thing,
yeah,
they
they've got.
glowed, and interestingly enough, they took him whenever they wanted for the purpose of having him interact with their children. Like literally, they put him there and let the children play with him while he was sedated, and they would return him. So it was kind of like an educational program, um, not officially sanctioned by the military, which he worked for because he was an airman in Air Force. But it was just that they were he was stationed in the oddest place you could be, was the weatherman. But when I read that, it was exactly that for me. And but that, I mean, that even makes your case just that much more interesting, because were they grays or were they the tall whites? And I've also read elsewhere people saying the tall whites are a version of grays, not the stereotypical gray, but they're of that milieu. So
Well, maybe they are. I mean, my first reaction is that she was just making up a story, um, which is kind of odd to say because I'm telling you that I saw these creatures and but to me I was like, oh, she's just making up something. You know what I mean? Um, it's very possible that she saw something that night as well, and you know maybe she's not telling a story. It would be
After you said that about Charles Hall, wouldn't it be something if all these gray aliens are children? I mean, what if they really are just like it's like school
Yeah.
to them where they're just studying humans and their parents are like whatever. It's like their sixth grade biology class or something. That would be really funny. Um, but yeah, I just thought that she was just a kid that was just making up a story. It's very possible that she did see something that night, and um, maybe she saw something that I didn't see. Um, all I remember is seeing those three short creatures, and then I literally blacked out. And then the next thing I know, I'm floating down from this thing in the front of the yard. Um, so it's hard to say, but that was just my initial reaction. I never even considered that maybe she was telling the truth, and maybe we both saw like two sides of the same coin type of
Yeah.
thing.
That's a
Yeah.
phenomenal insight. I never thought about it that way, you know. But I mean, indeed, with the tall whites, they were specifically the parents were making a safe territory, and Charles was the one that was sort of like donated to them to experiment on. So why wouldn't some of these grays
Mhm.
also be students potentially of, different fields? Um, I don't know. The in terms of the tall whites, with the characteristic being like a phosphorus white glow, the floating. Was that your only experience with that sort of, we'll say, technology in play?
I mean, I've seen some orbs and things that were glowing. I'll give you an. I mean, I don't know. I don't know who the tall whites are. You know what I mean? Um, One time in 2020, maybe I saw a basketball size, maybe a little bit bigger than a basketball, maybe like a beach ball size orb. It appeared. It came down at a perfect angle, and then it disappeared just a few feet away from me. Um, so I've seen kind of luminous orbs before, but I don't know what they are. I don't know who controls them. I don't know if they're portals or if somebody said to me that maybe it was a light that was like maybe there was a craft, and what I was looking at was a light being shined down on the ground. Maybe I wasn't looking at a craft at all. Maybe this was just a light. Somebody said to me maybe it was like a probe, like these bigger craft send out these little probes. um, I have no idea. My father and mother both reported seeing a tall, what they said, a woman in a white gown. Um, and it really didn't dawn on me at the time, but that's what she said too. That's what that little girl said, is that they were her friends and that they had long white gowns on. Um, yeah, I just don't know. Um, I don't know what a tall white is to compare, and I've never seen any creatures with really glowing skin or anything like that. The only really there are two tall ones that I saw out of everything. One was like a tall gray alien. It looked not the same as the short ones, but it looked a little bit different. That was the picture I showed you, like this. Um, that's what he looked like, and he seemed less animated. He seemed very stoic, like almost reserved. Um, and then the other creature that I saw that was pretty tall was this creature, and I called him an insect man, because he just looks like, At first, I called him a praying mantis creature, but I stopped calling him that because, you know, so I seen him and I was like, oh, this must be what other people that are seeing praying mantis creatures. This must be what
Mhm.
they saw. But then when I went and looked it up, all the pictures I saw that these other people were drawing and stuff looked nothing like it. So I stopped calling him a praying mantis and I just started calling him an insect person. But when he walked with his hands like this, like T Rex arms when he walked like this. Immediately I was like, oh, this must be what people were seeing.
but then, like I said later on, I don't know if that's the case. So I just call him an insectoid. But he had these two bulging eyes that literally look like if you took a drop of water and put it on a piece of glass, how like it really bulges out of the skull or whatever. But he was probably over 6 feet tall, and then the other one was at least 7, maybe almost 8 feet tall. The tall gray was probably the tallest one I've ever seen. He had a very pale skin, but he wasn't like shining or anything like that. So I don't know if I've ever seen a tall white. I might have never, I don't think I have. Maybe I have and I don't remember. But yeah, I don't know
meant
what
to
they look
ask
like.
you,
So I don't
where
know.
were you living at that time? Are you able to say?
Oh yeah, no, I can tell you everywhere. I kept it out of the book because I know that some people will go out there and like research and stuff like that, and every single place that I used to live is pretty much gone now, sold or somebody else lives there. When I saw the tall white and the insect creature, that was just a mile down the road. So that was in Lacey Springs, Virginia.
So this is interesting. This town, Lacey Spring, is bordered by some national parks, some rural areas, and there's a cavern 2.3 miles from it. And there was in 2023 UFO sighting there right near the cavern. So definitely an interesting location, conducive to an alien abduction, no doubt about it.
Yeah. When I had my encounters when I was a kid, almost every one of them was in Lewes Beach, Delaware. So it's Lewes, Delaware. And specifically, it was right on the corner of Mulberry Knoll and Route 24. So there's kind of like a little crossroads right there. And my grandfather, aunt, and father used to live all on the corner lot, and there was fields across the street, cornfields and stuff. Pretty much all of my encounters up until I was 21 years old were all right there.
So yeah, great stuff. These locations that Justin says he lived at, they're all very conducive to an abduction and have history of abduction and sightings, plentiful history of sightings, as I'll show you in just a moment. But take a look at the photos. These are the areas he's referencing.
And they're also drifting back and forth. Yeah, let's go this way.
Oh my god! Should we report something? It's a fucking saucer!
It's a flying
It's a
saucer.
fucking flying saucer! Wait, oh my god. My heart is pounding out of my chest right now.
I swear that's a flying saucer. I don't know what the
Well,
hell. It
there is
round.
nothing that flies that does that.
No, hell no, man.
Holy crap.
It's going along the beach is what it is.
And then I had a whole bunch of encounters in 2018. They were in, I'm trying to think, Basie, Virginia. It's Bayse, Virginia. So everything that happened from October of 2017 up until March of 2018, that all happened at the same place. It's in a very small town. It's like a town of 200 people in the Appalachian Mountains. And then everything else happened at, here where I'm at now. I don't really want to give people my address, but I'm pretty much just on the outskirts of Lacey Springs right now.
So the violence will not be tolerated. That was in the Appalachia area.
Yeah, that was all. Oh no. When they said that to me, when the creature said violence will not be tolerated, that was in the town of Millsboro, Delaware. So
basically, I lived in my dad's house up until I was a teenager, and then I moved to Millsboro, and that's where that one encounter happened, in Millsboro, Delaware. And then I moved from there, and nothing really happened until I was 26, about 26 years old. So for a good 5 years, I didn't have hardly any encounters at all. I think I've seen a few lights flying around or whatever, but no overt contact, no abduction, no. I mean, really, I don't remember anything happening from that time in 2009 up until probably 2015, 2016, maybe.
The extent that you've
Something like
shared
that.
so far, it's heavy.
Mhm.
It's a lot. I watched one of your
Yeah.
interviews where someone was saying like, I'm trying to finish the book, but they hadn't. But yeah, like 400 pages. I mean,
Yeah.
ha,
Well, I should have cut it down.
no,
maybe.
no, write another. But did you ever have a chance with either of your parents, your brother, other people in your family to extract like some information from them? Maybe not like this thick, but did you get a chance to ever get some of their experiences?
Oh yeah. So I don't think they're in the book, but my dad told me a few of his encounters. Um, my mom told me a few of hers. Um, my brother won't talk about it at all. The only time my older brother will talk about it is if we are alone. Like if we are alone, he will look left and look right and make sure nobody hears him. So he won't talk about it very much. Besides that, yeah, I mean, I know my dad had like two encounters that he talked about. And one of them I was with him. My mom talked about one encounter with a woman. That's what I told you before. They saw like a woman wearing a white gown. My mom talked about a few times seeing that woman, but they didn't give me like a coherent story. You know what I mean? They gave me like little pieces. Like my mom said, it happened multiple times where she saw that woman, and she said I would always come around the corner and she'd be standing like watching over your crib, and she said then she would just disappear, like right in front of my eyes, like you know. So she said she had multiple times when she saw that, and she said at one time she was like, well, I thought maybe I was just so tired, I had a new baby, and then she was like, the first time I thought maybe I was losing my mind. She was like, but once you see it a few times, you realize like, this is something else, like something she couldn't understand. But they didn't give me a whole lot of detail. But yeah, my dad told me about twice. That's pretty much it. I mean, not a whole lot. Certainly, maybe enough to write a chapter, I guess, but not
Yeah,
that much.
yeah. I mean, who knows? Maybe there's a lot there. It's hard to find a case where like each generation adds so much. It's usually like one, and kind of like you're saying, a little frayed, where you acknowledge stories here and there, but the substance isn't passed along.
Yeah. I think my older brother, I shouldn't say this, but I think he's had other encounters. This is just my perspective. To me, it seems like he's hiding something, like he's denying it, or do you know what I mean? Like you don't hide something that doesn't exist. If that makes sense to you, I think he's holding back. I think he's seen. He reminds me of my father, where I know my dad wouldn't talk about it for years and years and years. He was holding it back and holding it back and holding it back. And then when I got a little bit older, he talked to me about it a few times. I think that's what's happening with my brother, that he's had encounters.
he's probably seen things he doesn't want to talk about, and he's holding back because he doesn't want to. They're very self-conscious about how people see them, you know. They're really like their image and stuff, like they don't want people, you know, to make fun of them, and they're the crazy person, and oh, that's the UFO guy. So that would just be my speculation, but I assume that he probably knows more than what he's willing to admit. So he might have more information than I do, but I just don't think he's ready to. You know, he's just not one of those people that would talk to people about it.
Thank you for that. If you're willing, I have another question for you that I've pondered. It's kind of like I've never had such a traumatic experience, but if I had, I would wonder, like, do you feel compelled to get resolution? Not saying that disclosure is going to be resolution, because the government might disclose UFOs, but still not answer all these questions we've just talked about, you know, about the things we just don't know.
Yeah. I know there. I don't know what to do with it. I want open contact. Here's what I want. Right. I would like to just be able to say, "Hey, come on down. Let's talk." I want that sort of honest back and forth. Right. But like I said, they don't seem like that's what they want. Whatever they're doing, whatever their program is, they have their rules, and having this sort of open, honest kind of dialogue doesn't seem to be a part of it. I would love that. As far as disclosure goes, I think the government needs to admit to probably three things. They exist, right? They've captured them, and they've captured their craft, and that's, you know. And even if they said, well, we don't know where they're from, we don't know what they want, all we know is that these creatures exist and these craft exist. That I would be okay with that. I think that is the bare minimum that we need to get from government, is the existence. So you've got these things, you've got these creatures, and even if they say we have no idea, we don't know, even if they're lying, even if they do know more than us, I think that's the bare minimum that we need to get from them, because that minimum allows us to deal with the encounters that people are having in a proactive way. Like right now, we have people that are freaked out, and then we're dealing with it retroactively. And you know, but to tell the scientific community, like, yes, they exist. Yes, these creatures exist. Yes, there are going to be some encounters. We're going to bump into these things from time to time. That allows us to put together a procedure of how we deal with encounters, how we deal with the aftermath, how we deal with the UFO sighting. And I think that's what we desperately need, because there needs to be, like right now, if I go to a doctor, there is a 90% chance they will send me to a psychologist. They will not treat me as if something physical has happened to me, because these things don't exist. They're only in your head. Even if you have 10 witnesses, right, they are not real. It's all psychological. Even if they leave evidence when they land and there's a big burn mark in the ground, they don't exist. So we have this problem where we're exacerbating the damage that's being done. We're doing absolutely nothing to deal with that damage. We're massively affecting the psychology of our society. One of the worst parts about this situation is that once you know that they exist, you won't trust your government ever again. So now you have society does not trust or listen to the institutions of government. So it weakens the power of government. So they're lying to people. It's weakening their power. They're not dealing with the ramifications of contact. It's right now, it's like as bad as it could get. I mean, it's just a mess. So I think those are the things that they absolutely have to do, so that way we can modify ourselves and move on together as a society.
Oh, thanks for an excellent summary there. And if there is disclosure, maybe there's something there for you. I remember you talked about being informed that you had some important leadership role that you were somewhat confounded by. You didn't seem to know at the time of your book like what exactly that is, but it could possibly
Yeah.
tie into that some wave, some change in society.
Yeah, I really fought with telling people that. They told me on that one back in 2018 that happened. They told me that I would be a leader, and I was like, I was so angry at them back then. I mean, I didn't listen to a word they said. Like, I'll give you an example. If you told me in 2018 that I would be doing an interview about a book that I wrote about UFOs, I would just laugh in your face, because I would have, back then I didn't want anybody to know. I didn't want this to happen to me. I was angry that they were taking me. I was angry at the stuff that they were doing to me. So you have a creature that kidnaps you and then tells you like you're going to be a leader. I just laughed in their face. I was like, I don't trust you. I don't care what you think I'm going to be or what you think I'm going to do. I was just so angry and rebellious and yeah. So when they told me that, when I wrote it in the book, I really struggled with whether or not to tell people that they said that to me. I was like, I don't want to tell, because a lot of people from outside the UFO community, if you're a UFO whistleblower, if you're an abductee, they go, oh, well, what makes you so special? Some people legitimately feel like they've been chosen and they're special, and most people don't. Most people don't feel they. In fact, they feel the exact opposite. They feel like they've been targeted and abused. So, for the creatures to tell you that you're going to be some kind of leader, and then now you have to tell the public what they said, and they're like, "Yeah, right. You just want to be some cult leader or something like that." I really, really debated whether to tell people they said that to me. And at the time, I didn't believe them at all. And I still don't know. I still don't know what they meant by that. I don't know. I mean, I have no idea why they said that to me. Somebody told me. So I told somebody the same thing. I was like, man, I really wish I didn't tell anybody about that. And they said, well, maybe they knew that you would run your mouth. He said maybe they knew when they said that you're going to be a leader or whatever. Maybe they knew you were the type of person that you were going to tell everybody everything that happened. That you couldn't help yourself, but you were going to come forward and tell people about your experiences. And that's the most amount of sense that I've heard so far, is that maybe they knew that I couldn't, that I was going to tell people after, maybe they want some of this information out to the public for some reason. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know why they said that to me. I still feel, I feel embarrassed to say it. Do you know what I mean? Like, I wish I could have left that part out. Because like, what kind of leader am I anyway? Like, I don't want to be a leader. I don't want, to be honest, and I've said this to other people, if I could write it all down and I could put it out in the world and then nobody even know my name, I would prefer that. I don't want to be known for this. But the problem is you don't really have much of a choice. If you want people to know your story, if you write it anonymously, most people will just completely disregard it. The reason that people will listen to your story is because they can look you in the eye and they can ask you questions and they can make a decision on their own of whether or not you're being legitimate.
if you write it anonymously, most people just won't listen at all. Nobody will care. So I had to make the choice of putting my face out there and saying, like, this is my story. And I've had to make the choice of opening myself up to other people to allow them to interrogate, my story and the things that happened to me. But I never wanted any of this. And in many ways, I still, I said I like flying in the ships. I would rather fly in the ships and not get abducted and not be experimented on. You know what I mean? So in most ways, I still don't want this to be my life. But I just don't have a choice in the matter. I told somebody not long ago, I said, I have two options. I can either say something or I can say nothing. That's really my only choice. And this is, when you have these experiences and you actually know something, I may not know everything, to keep it secret from the society, to not tell people what happened, I think that's a crime against humanity. So
I wanted to ask you, Justin, do you feel like in your heart of hearts that you're in control of this? Like, there is more for you to do, or it's possible, there's more engagement possible, but because of your disposition, whether it be subconscious or not, that's a holdup. Like, do you feel like there's any control internally where you could instead say, okay, I'm not going to have any filters or blocks here. I'm ready to progress.
that's unfortunate. Yeah, I do think that I could engage more. I'll give you an example. Once I started doing CE5 in 2018, I was having all sorts of encounters. I mean, I saw more UFOs that year than I saw in any year of my life. I do absolutely believe that I could initiate more encounters. I don't. I think it's been good that I've held off. Because like I said, like 4 years ago, the encounter I had absolutely destroyed me. I don't think I could handle. I think it's, how do I say it? It's like a growing phase. You know what I mean? Like a tree that's really small can't handle high winds. It's got to get thicker and more resilient, and then it can stand tall against the wind. I think I think it's so traumatizing that I wasn't ready to take on that sort of direct contact. I think I had to become more resilient. I had to open up more. Um, I'm gonna have to go. My unfortunately the computer's dying. I didn't have it plugged in. I completely forgot.
Mine's not too far from dying either because I've got a cell phone here, a computer here. But Justin, I'm so gracious for the interview, and
Yeah, we can finish at any time. Just let me know.
yeah, it's been amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So there we have it, folks. 2.5, almost 3 hours with alien abductee Justin Bush. I think what started out intending to be a very short interview, more or less became a quasi or amateur documentary. So we learned a lot about Justin. I'm very thankful that he spent so much time, and I'll probably have some follow-ups with Justin as well. I mean, just that interview is an impetus for so many more questions. But I think thanks to Justin's donation of time, we have a much clearer and better understanding of his experience now. In reflection, some key things that stand out to me is even when you're somebody who's been abducted multiple times your whole life, you're still left, with the common people like myself, with questions, and there's frustration. You don't know the answer to those questions, and just because you've been abducted, it doesn't mean you have any secrets or know much more than anyone who hasn't been abducted knows. Granted, you've had experiences, interesting experiences that you can share, but the extraterrestrials, they're not forthcoming.
They're not. They'll tell you things. They won't tell you everything. Certainly not everything. Like Justin says, they seem to have a program, a mission, and they're on it, and they're held to a very fine regiment and set of processes. So again, we learn what we can from the experiences of others. We trust them wholeheartedly. We believe fully in everything they say. We don't have a reason to doubt unless there's something very clear that cancels it out. And that's the best way to put it. There's no reason to doubt unless something cancels it out. But anyways, we're not here to debate or judge. It's just a learning experience, and I wish I could conclude more, but that's part of subconscious learning. Is we've allowed ourselves like a sponge to absorb everything Justin's been able to tell us, and that builds into the great bigger picture of knowledge and understanding. So we thank you so much, Justin, for your contribution, and it's been an enriching experience and interview, and more to come, I'm sure. Bye for now.